There was once a young woman who could not find her peace. Her days were full, not of noise, but of thoughts. They came like waves against a shore, small, endless, familiar. She planned, replayed, worried, and wondered. Even in quiet rooms, her mind would not rest. Sometimes she envied the stillness of things. The trees that didn't rush. The water that didn't plan where to go next. The wind that passed without needing to be remembered. One evening, as light began to fade behind the hills, she walked out beyond the last houses of her village. The road narrowed into a path, and the path led her into the soft breath of the forest. There, she heard something faint, metallic, pure. It wasn't a bird or the rustle of leaves. It was a sound that seemed to be both near and far at once. A wind chime. She followed the sound until she reached a clearing where an old man sat beneath a crooked pine. He was mending a basket, slow and patient, as though he had all the time the world would ever offer. Above him hung the chime, 3 small bells and 1 piece of driftwood. When the wind passed, the chime answered. When the wind stopped, it waited. The woman watched for a while before speaking. "Doesn't that constant ringing bother you?" she asked. The man looked up. His eyes were kind, steady. "It used to," he said. "But I learned that the wind isn't trying to be quiet. It just moves. The sound is part of its passing." The woman frowned slightly. "I wish my mind was like that," she said. "It never stops moving. I try to make it still, but the harder I try, the louder it gets." The man set down his work and motioned for her to sit. "Hold this," he said, untying the chime and placing it in her hands. "Keep it from making a sound." She cupped it gently at first, but as the wind picked up, the bells trembled against her fingers. She tightened her grip, pressing the metal still until her hands began to ache. Her shoulders grew tense. She stopped breathing for fear of disturbing the silence. Minutes passed. The wind kept trying. She kept resisting. When it finally calmed, she exhaled and looked up. The man's face hadn't changed. "Is it peaceful?" he asked. She shook her head. "It's quiet," she said, "but it isn't peace." He nodded and smiled a little. "That's the difference," he said. "You can stop the sound, but not the wind. And if you try to stop both, you'll only exhaust yourself." The woman looked at her hands, pale, trembling. The faint shape of the bells pressed into her skin. She opened them slowly and hung the chime back on its branch. The next gust of wind arrived, soft but certain. And the bells rang again, bright, effortless, alive. She listened for a long time, until she could tell the difference between the sound of the bells and the sound of her own breathing. The first lesson stayed with her. You don't have to stop the wind. You only have to stop trying to control it. She visited the pine again the next morning. The air was cool and the grass wet with dew. The old man was sitting beside a narrow stream that curved through the clearing. The water was shallow and clear, running quickly over smooth stones. He gestured for her to come closer. "Listen," he said. "Tell me what you hear." "Water," she said. "It never stops. It never slows." "And is that good or bad?" She thought for a while. "Sometimes it sounds peaceful," she said. "But sometimes, when I can't rest, it feels like noise." The man nodded. "Water doesn't choose what we call it. We decide whether it's music or distraction. The sound stays the same." He picked up a pebble and placed it in the stream. The water split around it without protest. "See, the current doesn't fight the stone. It doesn't stop moving to complain. It just flows around what stands in its way." The woman crouched beside the water. She touched the stream, and it folded easily around her fingers. For a moment, she envied it. How it didn't think about where it was going, or what had already passed. The second lesson came quietly. You can't control the current, but you can choose how gently you move with it. As the days passed, the woman returned to the forest often. Sometimes she spoke to the man. Sometimes they said nothing at all. They shared tea, and silence, and the occasional wind. One afternoon, when the sky was silver and low, the man said, "There's one more thing to learn. You've seen the chime. You've heard the stream. Now walk home slowly." "Slowly?" she asked. "Yes. Notice how often the ground waits for you." She smiled at the oddness of it, but she obeyed. She took the path home at half her usual pace. At first it felt wrong, like she was wasting time she didn't have. Then, after a while, she began to notice things she'd never seen before. The shape of a leaf that looked like a sleeping bird. The way the soil darkened where the sun had touched it last. The distant hum of bees between one breath and the next. She realized that she had spent most of her life walking to get somewhere, not to be where she was. When she reached her house at the edge of the village, the wind had picked up again. It slipped through the open window, carrying the sound of a bell from far away. Faint, but clear. She smiled, not because she understood everything, but because she no longer needed to. That night she hung her own wind chime outside. It moved easily in the dark, answering every gust without effort. The world was not quieter than before. Her thoughts were not gone. But when they came, she let them move through her like the wind through the bells. Like water around a stone. Like footsteps on a waiting path. The third lesson completed the circle. Peace isn't found by emptying the mind. It's found by letting life make its noise. And remembering that you don't have to answer every sound.